Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world. And for the first time, actually, this is a live weightlifting news show because there are people in the room around me, which is very strange, forwards and back, because we don't have the studio built yet. So this is just a standard work day at Weightlifting House. One thing I wanted to mention, this t-shirt, the new Weightlifting House t-shirt, I think it's great. The other two here aren't such fans because they're not tie-dye people, but I think that we should make this live. So as of this moment, you can now buy this t-shirt over at weightliftinghouse.com. It's a tie-dye splash, paint going everywhere type thing. Also, quickly to mention, boxes of 30 thumb tape are available, black, blue, pink, and the house bar is not yet available, but it will be available in, right at the start of June, so about a week from now, you should be able to purchase this. There's a review video on the channel that you can check out also. Okay, so let's do this somewhat like we did last time, where we're just going to go through the news pieces first and then some of the bigger lifts. One of the first pieces of news I'd like to say comes as a surprise, but it really absolutely doesn't. The Azerbaijani weightlifter Boyanka Kostova, who originally placed 5th in 2012 at the Olympics, 58 kilo weightlifter, who was popped retroactively in 2016 for that 2012 performance. She's just been popped again. Dihydrochloromethyltestosterone and stanozolol. No, those are the two that she got popped for first time. It was stanozolol again this time, so that means she's going to have an 8-year ban coming up. She got this pop, I suppose, from the European Championships last month. They tested her. Stanozolol once again in the system. If you've seen her husband and the size of her husband, Alex, please put a photo here of her husband. You will maybe see one of the reasons why she is being pushed to take such ridiculous amounts of drugs over her career. So totally fair enough that she's been popped. As pointed out by Brian Oliver from Inside the Games, she was one of 6 Azerbaijani lifters in 2012 to be popped. So the entire team who competed at the Olympics got popped. She was originally bought by Azerbaijan from Bulgaria for $550,000. So it's quite embarrassing to see that Azerbaijan has put so much money into gaining weightlifters. Not only have they all been popped throughout their careers, but 0 of them have been able to qualify for Tokyo 2020. Oh, and then very quickly before I move on from this story, I thought this was really funny. There was a quote on Inside the Games from Boyanka about her career and about the future of her career, and she said, and this is a quote from her, "You just have to think positively," which I thought was just so perfectly hilarious that it had to be mentioned. Okay, next we have from Latvia another rather interesting story, which I feel like we need to get to the bottom of properly because it's probably not been reported on quite unbiasedly, because it was basically put up by the athlete himself. But Vadim Kozevnikov, who some of you may well know, 96 kilo weightlifter, who's done sort of 160, 207-ish in competition, he claims that he's been disqualified by the Latvian Federation as a weightlifter due to an insulting skit / TikTok that he made. It was basically a satirical piece where he stereotyped a Soviet-esque weightlifting coach. And the Latvian Federation and the Russian Federation believe that he was targeting a specific coach, and for that he's been removed from the roster of Latvian weightlifting, essentially. And then he also mentioned in his post, where he says about the reason that he was disqualified for making this offensive TikTok, he says that also this disqualification came because he went to the European Championships last month on his own, not with the Federation. So I imagine that accounts for far more of the reason why he was disqualified from the team, but it seems like both of these things contributed to it. It's not like he was going to go to Tokyo anyway, I don't think. He's sitting right around 25th, 30th. He's got around the same number of Roby points as Sohrab Moradi, so it's not like he was going to qualify. But even so, if the reason why he has been banned is because he made this TikTok laughing, mocking at the Soviet post, USSR collapse type coach, then that is kind of ridiculous. Owen Murphy and Dare from Seeker Strength, they have done a podcast with Vadim. I don't know if that's yet up, but apparently they go into detail on that, so worth checking that out if you want to learn more about the story. Okay, 2 more pieces before we get into the main lifts. The first, the more interesting of them, is to do with Lidia Valentin and her route to qualification, and then maybe just the broader implications of how she was able to qualify, and whether this should be allowed as we progress into the next quad. So Lidia Valentin, as most of you know, I mean, she's an astonishing lifter. Her career is really extensive. She's a 3-time medalist at the Olympic Games. She's medaled at many European championships, world championships. She has more international medals than maybe anyone who's still competing at the moment. Now, she's been competing throughout this qualification period as a 76 and an 81 kilo weightlifter, gaining Roby points essentially as a 76, and she gets anywhere between mid 400s and mid 700s. I think 740 is the most Roby points she's got, which is good. It's not amazing, but it's decent. So she's been lifting somewhat well. Now, the rules require that you don't actually have to have a total in the Olympic category in which you're going to compete. You just have to compete in that category, which I think is defined really as just showing up, weighing in, introductions on the platform, and then exposing yourself to the ability to be drug tested, but you don't actually have to put up a total. And so essentially that's what Lidia Valentin has gone and done. She currently sits in 14th in the 76s, so maybe she would be eligible if some of the lifters above her were removed from the competition because, you know, there are, say, 3 Chinese weightlifters and maybe some Romanians or Colombians who might not go, that sort of thing. Maybe she'd get the continental spot. But what she's done is she's taken those 2,740 points up to the 87 kilo category, and suddenly she now sits in 3rd place because she's just way more competitive with her Roby points. It's a less competitive category. So she now sits, rather than in 14th, she sits in 3rd, so she's going to qualify. She sits behind Wang Ziyu from China, who's way up in the lead, and then Matty Rogers from the USA, who essentially did the same type of thing, except that Matty has actually competed one time, just not particularly well, or at least not as well as she has done in other competitions in that weight category. So now we have Wang Ziyu, who's totaled something like 275 kilos, I think. Matty Rogers at 251, Lidia at 249, and those are the top 3. And there are several other lifters with higher totals in that weight category who are ranked below those 2 weightlifters. They're ranked below Lidia and Matty, but let's talk about Lidia because she literally hasn't yet put up a total in this category. And they're ranked below just because, well, it's a weird one, because they're going to be more competitive at the Olympics. They're better in that weight category, but Lydia's just been able to take her points up. Now, in defense of Lidia and I guess Matty, but Matty's done this a little bit more fairly, they would actually sit in the top 8 based on their totals from other weight categories. So it's not like they're actually taking positions from any other weightlifter. And also, this is something that the rules allow. So I would do it, you would do it. It's the right thing to do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just feel like maybe for Paris, in hindsight now, looking back at this, hindsight's 2020, 2021, maybe they should change a few things just to make sure that this maybe can't happen in the future. Perhaps the rule should just be you have to have put up a total at least twice in the weight category that you want to compete in, or 3 times, or something like that, just to avoid athletes competing in less competitive non-Olympic categories, gaining points, and then moving up into competitive Olympic categories and ranking higher because of that move. Okay, and then the final thing, I did a video a few weeks ago on the Sohrab Moradi loophole, and genuinely maybe 2 hours after I posted this video going into depth about how Sohrab actually could and might qualify for the Olympics, he then didn't qualify for the Olympics. So for those of you who wanted to know what happened, he needed to total 388 kilos to sneak into the continental slot, but he didn't make it. On his 3rd attempt in the snatch, he injured his wrist. Missed 170 on his opener, made it on his 2nd attempt, but it wasn't hugely convincing. And then 3rd attempt, I believe at 174 or 175, meaning that he would have needed somewhere around 212, 213. He injured his wrist and wasn't even able to come out for the clean and jerk. So Sohrab is officially out of Tokyo 2020. Nick, I'm going to make you a star by being in this video. All right, guys, let's do some of the lifts. So we've been through so many lifts over the last couple of months in weird orders just because of the competitions that have been happening. So I've picked out some lifts from the last couple of weeks that we haven't yet mentioned that truly do deserve a mention. Also, as we approach Tokyo, I'm skewing towards lifts in training that are relevant to what's going to happen in Tokyo, rather than from athletes who maybe aren't going to do anything or aren't even going to be qualifying for the Olympics. So we're going to start off in China, as we pretty much always do, with Tian Heart Attack Tao, who front squatted 280 kilos prior to the Asian Championships. And he didn't want to post that video because he didn't want athletes to know what kind of shape he was in prior to the competition, which leads me to believe that maybe he was in better physical shape than we realized, because he didn't lift that well. He snatched okay, snatched 175 I think, but in the clean jerk he wasn't in great shape. A little bit of pain in his upper body, but clearly in his lower body, his just general strength, he's in much better shape. So 280 front squat, pretty fast, looked like he could have maybe done 290, certainly no more than that. Shi Ziyong, also a video was released from him, the 73 kilo world record holder, world champion, Olympic champion, from prior to the Asian Championships. Again, he didn't want to release his best lifts. It looks like, I think it's probably 165 kilos, could be 170. What I imagine are red plates are suspiciously white. They look more white than they do red, but they look smaller, like 2.5s more than they do like 5. So I'm going to say it's 165 or on the side of a lighter lift, but could be 170. Anyway, this was the heaviest weight that he hit in the entire training program. So I imagine that something around 3-month period minimum, that's the heaviest snatch he hit prior to then going out and setting a new world record of 169. Not to mention the fact that he missed every single warm-up weight in the back room from, I think it was 130 kilos upwards. Bearing in mind, I've seen him power snatch in person 140 kilos multiple times, even 150 kilos, and in the back room at this comp he was missing 130, missing 140 multiple times, missing 150. Then he goes out and snatches 169 world record, more than he'd hit in months prior to this competition, which just goes to show what kind of a strong competitor Shi Ziyong is. There's also then a video of him after the competition hitting a 180 clean and jerk, and in that video Shi Ziyong himself confirms what we had all suspected from watching him compete, which was that he had a lot of knee pain. I think he says, "Somebody please call the ambulance, Wo Chao." Next we have Lu Dailin, not Lu Zhaojun, not Li Dayin, but the other 81, Lu Dailin, who I think is going to be up in the running for Paris 2024 against Li Dayin. I'm actually kind of looking forward to that competition as Lu Zhaojun presumably retires. He just hit 170 kilos, looked pretty good, 4 kilos under what Lu just hit, 5 kilos under what Li Dayin just hit for the world record in that 73 kilo category. Next, a lift from a Belarusian lifter, which I think leads on to a discussion that needs to be had very quickly as to who Belarus might send to Tokyo. Now, Petero Sayanak, who was an 85 in Rio, he then dropped down to 81 after Rio, now he's up to 96. He just hit 220 kilos in the clean and jerk. But the problem is, Belarus can only send one male lifter, one female lifter, because they're such a dirty country and they've been popped so many times. So the problem is, Petero Sayanak is a great weightlifter. 220 at 96 is not something that many other, maybe only 4 or 5 other 96s in the world can do. It just so happens that one of the other ones is also from Belarus, Evgeny Tsikantsu, who currently is sat in 27th in the entire world. I think he's sat in 4th in the 96s. I think it's Tian Tao at 1, Mezzo at 2. He could be in at number 3, but he's somewhere right at the top, so it might be that they actually pick him. We've not actually seen him lift since late 2019, so it's been a year and a half since we've seen Tsikantsu even hit a lift in competition. But because you no longer need a total in the third qualifying period, because the IWF just changed the rules, he's now suddenly one of the highest ranked, and he has totaled 400 kilos. He's one of 3 athletes who have qualified for Tokyo, the others 2 being Mezzo and Tian, who've actually totaled the mythical 400. So it might be that Belarus picks him. And then finally there's Andrei Romnau, the 109, the 2008 Olympic champion, the 2008 clean and jerk Olympic record holder, snatch world record holder, placed second in 2019 at the World Champs, but he just doesn't look like he's in great shape. He lifted pretty badly in the 109 plus B session because he couldn't cut down to 109 after the lockdown gains that he made sitting on the sofa. As he said, I'm not calling him out, that's what he said he'd done. So it's a tough decision for Belarus, but I'm kind of hoping that they actually send Evgeny Tsikantsu just to make that 96 kilo category more exciting now that the Iranians aren't going to be there, and potentially Tian Tao. Okay, let's head over quickly now to Georgia. Team Georgia, well, actually just Anton Plyaznoy, one of the best movers in the world, one of the lifters that I'm most fascinated with. He snatched 160, he then snatched 170, and he cleaned 208. All of these in different days, so he's been posting a little bit more frequently than he normally would. And just as you'd expect from Anton Plyaznoy, all of these lifts were, just incredible precision. I've actually been trying to channel my inner Plyaznoy when I've been lifting recently, specifically in the split jerk, because it's a lift that I just am the most awful at in the world, and he's so good at. I've been trying to lift like him. So more Plyaznoy is always a good thing. Next we have Eko Yuli Irawan. This is a really interesting one. So the Indonesian weightlifter, he just went 135 in the snatch, 172 in the clean and jerk. That's a 307 total. And then he hit 175 in the clean and jerk, which is a kilo over his own world record. The reason this is interesting is he is one of the key players in the decision that China has to make as to who goes to the Olympics. Is it Tian Tao or is it Li Fabin? Now, I'm not sure that I'm pretty sure that the other three, Shi Ziyong, Chen Lizhen, Liu Jiajun, are going to go. And in fact, the China prediction video might be up before this is up, so you might have already seen my reasoning as to why. But I think to some degree it comes down to the kind of shape that Eko Yuli Irawan is in, because he is such a great weightlifter. He might be the kind of person who can push Li Fabin to miss a lift and then not win his Olympic medal. I mean, Eko Yuli Irawan also is a 3-time Olympic medalist. He's won 2 bronzes and a silver. So you maybe don't want to be the kind of athlete that gets thrown in the way of someone who's won 3 Olympic medals and one of the potentially most incredible stories ever in weightlifting, which would be to finally win a gold on his 4th. Okay, we also have Fernando Reis from Brazil, muscle snatched 145 kilos, which is huge. Alexei Lovchev from Russia, muscle snatched 140 kilos, which is huge, but not quite as much. Both amazing, neither quite the speed of Lash's 150 that we've seen, but even so, particularly this 145 from Fernando certainly deserves a mention. Speaking of exceedingly large people who make me feel small, we have Enzo Kaworgi, one of the strongest junior weightlifters in the world from the Netherlands. I don't know how much he weighs, but he's somewhere around 160 kilos. He's enormous. He just hit 220 kilos for a front squat plus jerk. He might be competing in Junior Worlds in a couple of days, actually. I think he is. He's looking really good. I mean, there's 220 front squat plus jerk. He's been hitting 210 clean and jerks, 175 snatches, making things look incredibly easy. So this hopefully is going to be his breakout quad. He's a little bit too young, hasn't quite developed the numbers capable or required to qualify for this Olympic Games, but by next year or next quad we may see him in the running. Over to the UK now, 2 lifters, same gym, 2 future Olympians. We have Sarah Davies and Emily Campbell. Now Sarah, a 64 kilo weightlifter, she just hit 130 kilos in the clean off blocks for a double, which is enormous because I believe her best ever clean and jerk is 129, and I think that's what she just hit at the European Champs. I think she went 101, 129, her first ever 230 total. So to be now doubling that off blocks is great, without the jerk, but still. And then Emily Campbell, who was just so absurdly strong, super heavyweight, she went 150 kilos for a 2+1, 2 cleans, 1 jerk, at a training camp in the USA. Not quite sure why she was in the USA for this camp, but a couple of the GB girls were there. Looked like they had a great time. 2+1, now considering her best clean and jerk, she also just hit at the European Champs, was 154. And that also, I believe, was not a continental record, I think it was a Commonwealth record, that 154. So 4 kilos under for a 2+1 in just a random training session is staggering. Alright, just 3 lifts left now. Don Opolegi from Samoa, 96 kilo weightlifter, just hit a 175 kilo snatch. He also recently clean and jerked 215. Now, he said in his caption something like #Road to Tokyo. I don't think it's possible for him to qualify. His numbers have just been way too low. He's been snatching in the 40s and 50s. This quad hasn't been clean and jerking anything quite like this. So I don't think he's going to qualify. But even so, had he been putting up these numbers regularly, 175, 215 in competition, we'd be talking about him for a potential bronze medal at the Olympics. These are almost Plyaznoy-esque numbers, slightly shy on the snatch, but right in and around there on the clean and jerk. So exciting to see what Don from Samoa can do in this next quad. Now, sticking with the 96 kilo weightlifters, Bodhi Santavi, I just wanted to mention this 182 snatch, 400 pounds, 182 kilos, which I don't think we mentioned because he did it in the build-up to the Pan Am Champs. And during that time, we were doing so much coverage of the Asian Championships that we weren't able to get into the weeds of some of these other training lifts. So 182 kilos, it's just 6 kilos shy of the world record from Sohrab Moradi. It's a kilo. Do you know if Bodhi hit 181? Dan, do you know? Do you remember?
181.
Yeah, I think it was 181. 181. It was 181. Cool. And then the final lift to mention is from the big guy down south, from New Zealand, David Lidia, strongest man in the Oceanic region. He just hit 220 kilos for a double in the clean. I think he may have even cleaned something for a single that was big. I'll take a look and mention it next week if I'm right. He also, I haven't seen this lift yet, but I saw it pop up on my Instagram. I haven't clicked it. I think he did a 200 kilo, certainly a push press. It was a something and a push press. Could have been a power clean and push press. You know what? I am just going to look at that because that is a good lift. 200 kilo push press plus jerk. Push press, incredibly easy. No grind at all. And then jerk, as you'd imagine. If you can push press it, you can make it look like a twig on the jerk, and he does. So David Lidia just absolutely showing off at this point. Incredibly strong weightlifter. Can't wait to see what he does in Tokyo. His training clearly has been going pretty well over the last few months. And that is absolutely everything for this week's episode of the news show. This t-shirt, which Dan and Nick aren't huge friends of, but I think is absolutely epic, is now available at weightliftinghouse.com. It is a tie-dye splash, looks sick, EST MMXV 2015, when the name Weightlifting House came into fruition. Also, a box of 30 tape are also available, black, pink, blue. The house bar will be available early June, probably a week from now. The plates, we have plates in the USA, right?
Should be up now,
Yeah, we have plates available in the USA as well, so if you need some plates, head over to weightliftinghouse.com, and we have more products coming out very soon, which will be particularly exciting. Appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll catch you all next week. Okay, I just ended the show, and then I was told that I just said that it was called the house bar. The house bar is down there. This is the elite bar. The elite bar will be available in early June. Thank you all for tuning in.